Dr. Bronwyn King, AO, is, I suppose, typical ape-type personality for a doctor. She's a former elite swimmer, qualified oncologist, and a campaigner against tobacco to a stage that has, well, some say changed the world and saved lives. She is also, over the weekend, named as Melburnian of the Year. Dr. Bronwyn King, good morning.
Good morning, Neil. Thanks for having me in.
What drives you from what was your event as a swimmer?
Oh, what was my event as a swimmer? I was a 100-metre freestyler.
And what level did you get to? Where did you compete?
Well, I was a very nice junior swimmer, so I represented Australia at a junior level at 3 different international meets. But unfortunately, I sustained a really nasty shoulder injury, which is unfortunately very common for young swimmers, and I had to retire at 17. But my claim to fame is that I won the Lawn Pier to Pub in 1991. I won the Open Women's Lawn Pier to Pub, and that's been more exciting in my swimming career than just about anything else, according to
It's pretty tough
most
swim,
people.
isn't it?
That swim, that was a tough swim, yes, because it was my first ever open water swim, so I wasn't expecting all of the brouhaha that happened at the start, but it was a great event.
Do you feel stress?
Oh, goodness me. Yes, I get stressed out about certain things, but I guess over the years I've learnt to try to put things in perspective. And
What stresses you?
Oh, goodness. Well, on this issue that I'm dealing with, what stresses me is that the world's on track for 1 billion tobacco deaths this century. 1 billion. There's only 7 billion of us. So it stresses me out that we're not doing enough and we're not doing it quickly to bring that under control and to prevent that from actually happening.
That's not a personal stress, though, is it?
Oh, I think it is a personal stress because I've seen really firsthand what tobacco does to people, and I feel really compelled to make sure that this issue stays on the agenda or at least even gets on the agenda in the right kind of places. And those places, funny enough, includes the boardrooms of some of the biggest financial organisations in the world.
Is being an oncologist stressful?
I think most people find being a doctor stressful, full stop. I don't think it's just oncology. I think that looking after human beings at their most vulnerable moments is something that is stressful. And I think that making sure that doctors are looked after in terms of, their well-being and mental health, that's a real focus now in the medical community. So certainly it is a stressful career, and we do need to do more to look after our medical staff.
That's what I was getting at. We seem to have real problems with mental health at the moment with cricketers in the Victorian team, with young footballers who are taking time out and even leaving the game because of the mental health issues, some of which are stress-based. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with the stress for doctors? What do you do to help people who are going through really tough times?
Well, I think, look, those are really great conversations that people need to be having really broadly across the community. I mean, you've just mentioned medicine and sport, but really I think most workplaces have significant issues with anxiety and stress and depression amongst their workers. So it's an issue that really has no boundaries. But I think that there's been a lot of great campaigns in recent years, and there's certainly more coming, where it's becoming destigmatised. People are now much more willing to talk about mental health issues and to seek help when they need it. I certainly don't have all the answers, but I think having more conversations about it and talking about how common it is to have points in your life where you are not going through a great time, but you can recover if you reach out to support services and get the help that you need.
Even a person like you, I'm an elite swimmer, highly qualified doctor, Melburnian of the Year, taking on the tobacco industry, you have downtimes?
Oh, of course. Of course I have downtimes, but I'm extremely lucky to have a great support network that I can reach out to. And when I need to take a bit of a break, I will tell people I need to take a break and take a couple of days off here and there and make sure that I relax and get enough sleep and look after myself.
Do you exercise? Do you swim still?
Oh, it's a great question. I don't swim because it's just a bit difficult to fit into a very crazy life. And a few years ago, I tried all sorts of ways to get exercise back into my life. And finally, I bought one of those cross trainer machines. So I've got one of those at home. Yeah, yep. That's the one. He's doing the exercises now here for everyone who can't see. And I bought some weights and a Swiss ball and an exercise bike at home so that even if I've only got 20 minutes, I can squish in a little bit of exercise at the time that suits me.
When did you last do it?
Oh, goodness me. Well, actually, believe it or not, I got the flu And it took a long time for me to recover. I had my vaccine. I'm very
So it was the real flu,
very
it wasn't this nasty
vaccine.
cold, it was flu.
Yeah, I got the flu, so it's taken a bit to recover. But prior to that, I was going really well. So I had about 2 months there where I exercised sort of about 4 or 5 times a month. So I was doing well.
A month?
A week.
Yeah.
But I'm yet to get back on track. And I've had some very big travels between then and now. So
What was it like, the flu?
Oh, the flu's nasty, Neil. The flu's terrible. And I don't know if I got a slightly attenuated version of the actual flu because I had the vaccine, or if I got something, a different strain. But it was terrible, and it really knocked me around. So it's good for doctors to get sick occasionally and realise how terrible it is when you're not feeling well.
Yeah, but every doctor I know gets a cold and declares it as the flu.
I'm pretty tough normally. I think this really was the flu. I was in bed for a week, so that's pretty rare for me to be stopped in my tracks like that.
Now, you've taken on the finance sector and the support for tobacco companies. Is it correct you were told that you'd save more lives by doing that than you would as a clinician?
So that's right. One of my great mentors and inspirations is Professor David Ball. He's the head of the lung cancer unit at Peter MacCallum Cancer Centre in Melbourne. And he's the main reason I actually became an oncologist in the first place, because I was lucky enough to work with him when I was a junior doctor, and I saw him in action, and he's so inspiring, and he's a really great mentor and leader. And then when the first super fund went tobacco free, they got rid of $200 million worth of investment in tobacco companies, and they were very proud of that decision. It was first state super back in 2012. And the day that they made that announcement, we had a joint press release with Peter MacCallum, so it was a win-win scenario, and we got lots of great feedback. And that night, Professor Ball sent me an email saying that, and that really spurred me on. It was great that somebody who I really respected so much would send me such a nice email. And early on in my years of doing this work, a lot of people said, look, just focus on oncology, get back to work, do more research, and just focus on the clinic. And but I knew that Professor Ball had my back, and he thought it was a great idea, and that really meant a lot to me and helped me, I guess, back the idea and get more involved in it. And
so
see
what
where
have
it
you?
could go.
What has happened? What has happened since then? What have you achieved?
So since then, I had to learn an awful lot about finance because I had no background in finance or accounting or economics or commerce or anything like that. So I've done an awful lot of sort of self-education to learn a lot about the sector, and I have had meetings with finance leaders now from more than 20 countries, and I have asked them to reconsider just business as usual in the finance sector. And unfortunately, business as usual is that banks lend tobacco companies money. Big super funds and pension funds all around the world invest money in tobacco companies, and insurance companies insure them. Fund managers invest in them. And really, the whole finance sector thinks of tobacco just like any other company. But in the health sector, we don't think of tobacco companies like any other companies. We're doing everything we can to try to either prevent tobacco-related illness or treat the terrible, devastating health consequences of tobacco. And also governments are doing everything they can. There's only one global health treaty that exists, and it's the UN Tobacco Control Treaty. And 181 countries have signed and ratified that treaty. And then you think of all of the parents and communities and teachers out there who are trying to help the next generation reject smoking and really protect them. And so I always say I tried to build a bridge between the health sector and the finance sector on the issue of tobacco. And so now in Australia, there are 45 of our biggest just mainstream pension funds, super funds, that are totally tobacco free. And that was a great case study to share with the world. So last year, with the support of President Macron and also Prime Minister Turnbull at the time, we launched a global initiative at the United Nations in New York. It's called the Pledge, the Tobacco-Free Finance Pledge. And at the moment, there are 126 financial organisations from 21 countries that have signed up, and they control almost $8 trillion US.
Well done. What's next?
Oh, my goodness. Well, that is we think that's about 10% of the job done. People have often said to me the first 10% of any job is the hardest 10%. So I like to think we've done some of the hardest work. But our work now, our job now is to expand and accelerate the pledge and encourage financial organisations everywhere to have these conversations. And even though it seems quite an easy conversation to many people. In the finance sector, it's tricky, and there's a lot of nuances that we have to go through, and there's a lot of potential barriers and regulatory hurdles, and so we work with the finance sector to really empower them with lots of great information so that they can defend taking a really strong position on tobacco.
Well, have a look at your super fund. Ask them. Melburnian of the Year, Dr. Bronwyn King. Is this the passion now ahead of medicine?
Well, it's become a very big passion, and it's been amazing to meet so many really high-powered leaders all across the world in government, in finance, in health, and to see that once they hear of this work, they want to help us and expand it. And it's given me an insight into how the world works, and I know it can be done. We just need a bit more time. We also need to find some more supporters to help us make this happen. So one of my key messages is if there is anybody out there who would like to get behind us, we would really love to talk to you about how you might support our work and help us expand across the globe.
Website?
Yes, our website is, you can just Google us, so it's Tobacco-Free Portfolios, but you can just Google and you'll easily find us online, and there's a donation button online. We've also set up a GoFundMe page for Tobacco-Free Portfolios, and you'll find us easily. We would very much welcome donations and support from the community.
We'll put a link to this interview on our website so people can find it easily. Have you ever in your life tried a cigarette?
No, well, I was an elite swimmer, and it just never crossed my mind. I spent all my time trying to, just knock 1/100th of a second off my best time. So it for me, it just never made any sense. But I know that, in Australia, the average age that people start smoking is 16 years and 2 months, and that is the oldest average age in the world. So we really do have to protect our young people as much as we can.
Thank you for coming in. Congratulations.
Thanks so much, Neil.
Dr. Bronwyn King, Melburnian of the Year.